Well, good evening and welcome everyone to the Active Science Seminar. I'm Megan Holt, Vice President of Events. And before we get started, please note we have limited capacity on this webinar. And if you know someone who is unable to join, please let them know that this will be recorded and made available for viewing afterward. To ensure the best recording, again, please make sure you are muted and stay muted throughout the call. And now, please allow me to introduce our host of tonight's call, David Brown, our CEO.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks, everybody. It's great to be on one of these live Zoom calls. I look at all these familiar faces from all over the United States, all over Mexico, and who knows, maybe some other places that I'm not aware of either. I'm tempted, and it was kind of hard to stay quiet during these the first few minutes to not reach out and say hello to Jerry, hello to Susanna, hello to everybody. But if I do that to everyone, we'll be here all night and we won't be able to hear the doctor speak. And I know that that's what all of you joined us for. And so without further ado, I want to get into this call that has three esteemed persons who have very different backgrounds and experiences and many notable achievements, but are all united with us in our desire to help people activate their health and activate all other aspects of their lives as well. And so joining me tonight are two members of our advisory board, Dr. Joseph Maroon and Jeff Bost, his colleague, both of whom are calling in from Pittsburgh, and Dr. Larry Martin, who's calling in from Oregon, and I always forget which city Dr. Martin's calling in from, so he'll have to explain that, but we're glad to have them all with us. Dr. Martin is not a member of our advisory board, but as part of our newly constituted distributor medical board that we are creating in both the United States and Mexico. And so any of you that are medical professionals in either of those two countries and would like to join our distributor advisory board, please send in a request and information about your background to Megan, and we'll talk more about that in the days and months ahead. So we're excited to get started. Dr. Maroon, Jeff, Dr. Martin, welcome to the call. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You know, the theme of tonight is not just to talk about individual products, but more importantly, to talk about how all of the Active's products work synergistically together and can help in a combined way to improve our health. And so, Dr. Maroon, we'll turn the time over to you. I think Megan's going to run the slideshow, and so some of you are going to see some slides that you've seen before. There's some new information as well, and I'm excited to hear the information presented tonight. So go ahead, Dr. Maroon.
Well, thank you very much, David. It's a real pleasure to share our experiences and observations with all. And if we can see the first slide, please, Megan. You've already met Jeff Bost and Dr. Martin, and we're here to speak about, as David said, the products that Active is featuring and the unique physical and biochemical changes that these particular nutraceuticals have on our bodies in terms of, speaking of Link initially, how it increases metabolism, it improves brain function, and we'll get into that a bit more in terms of the neurotransmitters and neurophysiology a bit, how it improves gut function, which is critical in terms of our microbiome, actually referred to as our second brain when we talk about the gut-brain connection and the brain-gut connection, how it regulates the immune system and may have significant implications relative to autoimmune diseases, which really are epidemic in terms of our society now, and how it's a powerful anti-inflammatory and also it complementary to our other products which benefit the skin. Meg? So in terms of Link, the most significant factor is that it really is a butyric acid compound in a special carrier that gets released optimally in the large intestine where it can do the most good. And it's a short chain fatty acid, and it has major effects on our body. It's actually essential to our body in terms of our gut health. ordinarily it's produced naturally in the colon as a result of the food and particularly the dietary fiber and the interaction with intestinal bacteria. But as Jeff will discuss later, the food that we do eat, particularly in our Western diet, can result in a much decreased level of butyric acid and hence negative and deleterious effects. It's also a powerful signaling molecule in terms of signaling at the cellular level, and we'll describe that in more detail. And it's critical to total body health. And Jeff, maybe you'll take this and explain a little bit about how it works in the intestine, the skeletal muscles, the liver, and the adipose tissue.
Yeah, one of the things, thank you, Dr. Maroon, and thank you all for being with us tonight. One of the things that was most exciting when we learned about Link and butyric acid is butyric acid is in some ways just as vital to the body as oxygen and water. It's an energy substrate, it powers cells, and it just doesn't work in the colon, meaning it can go, has benefits all over the body. And this slide sort of encapsulates several organ systems, including skeletal muscle, where it can increase lean body mass. The colon, obviously, is a place where the body can naturally produce butyric acid as far as from the bacteria breaking down food. But of course, we'll go on a little later, as Dr. Maroon alluded to, that very few of us are producing enough butyric acid for our needs. The liver reduces inflammatory mediators, and especially in adipose tissue, where it can decrease adipose tissue mass. It decreases oxidative stress, which I'm sure Dr. Martin will talk to us a little bit later as well. So the idea of it's working throughout the body, I think, is one of the keys that this slide brings to you. And as David was saying earlier, if anyone ever challenged you as far as the benefits of butyric acid, I'll be free to circulate this slide to anyone as far as to let them know this is a molecule that works everywhere, and it's very beneficial to our health in every organ. And we're going to talk about that as we go along with the slides tonight.
Jeff, Dr. Maroon, if I can interrupt you right there for a second. Both of you sound like you're pretty familiar with butyric acid. And in fact, I know from our very first conversation that when I told you that we had a butyric acid product in the form of Link and in this proprietary, very unique form, both of you were, I was actually amazed that you two both knew so much about it. Why is it that Dr. Maroon, you as a neurosurgeon, and Jeff as a colleague and a physician's assistant who has assisted in, I think you told me 30,000 surgeries or something like that over the years, what got you so interested in this, I don't know whether we should call it a miracle molecule or not, but this very important substance called butyric acid?
Dr. Maroon, you want to go first? I think, is Dr. Maroon muted?
I think we may have lost him.
Okay, well, I'll answer that first, and we can get Dr. Maroon back on the line. We work in neurosurgery, as David said, and one of the things that is one of the most horrible things that a person can have is a brain tumor. And we found out that tumors and most cancers live on sugars. And butyric acid, in addition to being a small chain fatty acid, is also a ketone body. And as we've talked time and time again, the idea of energy production and energy substance that butyric acid can provide. So instead of sugar, for example, our body can use butyric acid or ketone bodies as an energy source. So ironically and interestingly, brain tumors feed on sugar, but they don't feed on butyric acid. So the idea of providing someone butyric acid or other forms of ketones can actually starve the tumor from sugar and still provide the person energy. So that was our first entree into it. And immediately as we got into it a number of years ago, we found out how hard it was to get butyric acid or ketone bodies in somebody. And really the Link product, as I said, I think David very early on, was the holy grail as far as the ability to get this in the body as far as where it belongs in the colon, where it can do the most good, as well as not having a foul taste that would that would clear a room. So I think this is one of our early introductions to butyric acid.
And I second everything Jeff said. We've actually written several papers, and we've worked with a really preeminent individual in the field called Thomas Seyfried, who has written an excellent book and many papers on the metabolic basis of cancer. And basically, Jeff said it very well. The idea, a ketogenic diet can supplement traditional therapies for many types of cancer, and could be very effective.
Dr. Martin, you're an audiologist by training, and then you have spent a lot of time in holistic medicine and particularly in the field of oxidative stress. What did you know about butyric acid prior to hearing about Link, and what did you find out, and what was your response?
Well, when I found out that Actis was bringing on this product, I can honestly say I knew nothing about butyric acid. But being a prolific reader of research, I immediately dove in to find out what the researchers dealing with butyric acid were saying about it. And I would have to be honest in saying my first reaction was, oh my, this is really important stuff. So.
That's great. Well, Megan, I think we can go to the next slide, and Dr. Maroon, you can get us back on track.
Sure, absolutely. So the question is, okay, and we've discussed this already, why do we need butyric acid? And I mentioned earlier the brain-gut and gut-brain connection. We now know, and this is relatively recent information, there's a bidirectional connection between what happens in the gut and what happens in the brain, and vice versa. We know people who are under incredible stress, anxiety, depression have GI problems. And the question is, why is that? And the reason for that is that in the brain, you have cells called microglia, as you can see at the top of this slide. Microglia are the cells that result in inflammation. And if you get a splinter under your finger, it gets red hot, tender, and swollen because of macrophages and white blood cells that rush to that area. In the brain, not only trauma, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, but also stress can activate microglia. And via the vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve in the body that supplies nerve supply to the gut, impulses are transmitted to the stomach and to the intestinal tract. So it's terribly important that homeostasis or balance be modulated in an appropriate way in the brain as well as in the gut. And we also know that people who have irritable bowel disorder, for instance, there's oftentimes a psychogenic component to this as well, anxious, tense, and this and that. And which comes first, the chicken or the egg? But we know that butyric acid reduces the inflammatory microglia, and the blood-brain barrier that protects the brain from intrusive molecules is actually permeable to the butyric acid. So it's able to get into the areas of the brain where it's needed. And the same thing in the gut. It serves as an anti-inflammatory, and you've all heard of autoimmune diseases, and some of you may have heard of the leaky gut syndrome. Well, the leaky gut syndrome refers to the fact that from our esophagus and the back of our throat to our rectum, there's a very thin line of cells called epithelial cells, and then very thin mucus that is secreted throughout our entire intestinal tract. If there's a breakdown in the formation of mucus or in the lining of the cellular lining, which is a few cells thick, then food particles can pass through the intestinal lining into the bloodstream, and just like a splinter in your finger, can incite an inflammatory reaction. And this may be responsible in many cases for autoimmune diseases. Bottom line, butyric acid is essential for maintaining the epithelial lining of the intestine and also the manufacturing of mucus that lines the intestinal tract. So again, we could go on, but I think that capsulizes it.
Is it safe to say then, Dr. Maroon, that based upon that previous slide, that when you say from the brain to the rectum, I guess you're literally saying that butyric acid is used by the body from top to bottom as a tool to get better and to be healthy. Is that safe to say?
Well, you say it more succinctly than I, David. So,
Well,
Jeff?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about this slide, Dr. Maroon, to our listeners. We've already established that butyric acid has tremendous and wide-ranging benefits. And we know that the Link product has this as its active ingredient. And I guess as a dietary supplement, which is what we're talking about, why do we need it in our body? And the fact is that we are deficient, as I said earlier, in butyric acid in multiple ways. Our diet, our substrate of food, which provides naturally the formation of butyric acid in the colon, is depleted of those substrates. So for example, a high salt, high fat, high sugar, high calorie diet, the typical Western diet, does not provide those particles and molecules that butyric acid can be made from. So diet is one side. The flip side is the massive amount of digestive disorders that are in so many populations, whether it be from stress, as you alluded to, or poor diet, or other health-related problems like irritable bowel syndrome and celiac disease, and you've already mentioned leaky gut syndrome. So you have a sort of a twofold problem. You have a problem with the absorption process, and you also have a problem with the diet. So the fact is the vast majority, there's no doubt, have low levels of butyric acid. And this can be tested as well. And there's many studies now that show people who have, for example, irritable bowel syndrome have very low butyric acid. So it really is a need for supplementation. And the problem has always been, how do we get it in our body? How do we get it properly through supplementation in our body? And Link does provide that answer, unlike many other products that have been tried.
So based upon that, Jeff and Dr. Maroon and Dr. Martin, if part of the problem is a poor diet, and part of the problem, and many of the problems as a result of that, are digestive disorders, in answer to the question, well, who can really benefit from Link? What would your answer be, Larry?
I would say everyone. I've reviewed research literature that the authors go out as far as saying that you can pull almost anybody off the street and do studies on them and find that they have a gut system that's not functioning at par. And so really it is because of our diet, because of the environment we're living in, this is labeled as, butyric acid is labeled as one of the most purest of supplementation. The idea is to provide more of something the body already produces, and this is one of the best supplementation you can provide to increase butyric acid in your system.
Okay.
And I would concur and also say that you can take a probiotic, but still, if that probiotic is breaking down throughout the intestines and not getting in the colon, you're still not going to be able to produce enough butyric acid. So even though people try other supplements and other ways of doing it, you really have to get to the cellular source, and that's the ability to increase butyric acid in the colon.
Well, one of the best advantages, of course, is that Link includes a prebiotic with the butyric acid, and it's the prebiotic that's most effective in terms of feeding, if you would, the bacteria in our gut that makes the butyric acid. So it's the combination of both that makes this unique.
Great, thank you.
So when we talk about how does it promote health, it really gets, it can get very complicated, or we can try to explain it more simply. The epigenetics is a whole new field of science in the last 10 to 15 years. We know what the genome is. The genome is unchanging, but those factors that affect our genes are called epigenetic. These include food, exercise, various toxins in our environment, and even stress are epigenetic factors that act upon our genes to tell them which proteins to express of the 100,000s that our genes make. For instance, if you eat a Big Mac, wash it down with phosphoric acid in your Coca-Cola, trans fatty acids on your French fries, you are going to tell your gut to make inflammatory cytokines through your genome. Those are epigenetic factors as contrasted to a Mediterranean diet, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and a healthy diet. It's going to tell your genes epigenetically to make anti-inflammatory agents. And we know that inflammation is the common genesis of cancer, heart disease, stroke, MS, as well as many, many other diseases, usually diseases of aging. So that whatever we can do through these epigenetic factors, like Link, only benefits our health. And as I mentioned earlier, it strengthens the lining of the gut and the stomach by increasing energy metabolism or cellular metabolism. And what we mean there, it acts directly on the mitochondria. The mitochondria are those organelles within every cell of our body that makes energy. It takes oxygen, it takes glucose, and it converts it to ATP. This is cellular metabolism and energy. If we have deficiencies in our mitochondria, we have less energy, and it also is a common genesis of many diseases we think now, like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease, diseases of mitochondria. So whatever we can do, like Link, can help with energy metabolism, also helps us in our fight against cancer, autoimmune diseases, and other diseases of aging. And it, as I mentioned, it decreases inflammation, enhances vitamin absorption as well. Most of the vitamins that we take depend on the microbiome. You all know what the microbiome is. There are 2.5 pounds of organisms, of bacteria in our gut that, and it's interesting, our brain weighs about 2.5 pounds as well. So some people have referred to the gut microbiome as the brain in our gut, just like the brain intracranially. And it improves mood by enhancing a compound called BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. And this compound actually enhances the formation of new brain cells. It also enhances connections, synaptic connections, and neuroplasticity, as well as increases serotonin, the greatest drug, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs like Prozac. Billions of dollars a year are sold because it modulates serotonin. And Link actually greatly facilitates the production of serotonin in our bodies and also helps our immune system and brain function.
So it sounds like, Dr. Maroon, that we should take a quick break, let everybody run and swallow some Link, because there is going to be a test at the end of this discussion. We're going to need all the brain power we can get, I think. So, no, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and as I said, it used to be thought that we're born with 100 billion neurons or brain cells. And as we get older, we lose millions and millions a day until we dry up and die. That's not the case. We now know that we can enhance the formation of new brain cells, particularly in that part of the brain that subserves memory, which is called the hippocampus. And neuronogenesis is the formation of new brain cells. And butyric acid improves that function as well as aerobic activity. So whenever I go for a run, I'm telling myself I'm making more brain cells and enhancing my brain function, which is true. And it strengthens the blood-brain barrier that we mentioned earlier, and it facilitates the connection between the brain and the gut via the nervous system in our brainstem, the vagus nerve that I mentioned, and clearly moderates mood disorders. I mean, if you notice your mood during the day, it clearly fluctuates. You may get up in the morning and feel a little irritable and this and that, and then you improve during the day, or 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, your mood goes down. related to your blood sugar as well as your neurochemical output. So, the key to all of this, the neurotransmitters, a major part of it is formed in our gut, and a major part of it is dependent on the formation of butyric acid. And this, Jeff inserted this slide, and you just read the title and it says what it means: the neuroactive potential of the human gut microbiome in quality of life and depression. So there are many studies now that are relating the microbiome activity and its ability to produce serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, the neurotransmitters that modulate our mood and hence contribute to depression if you don't have enough of it.
Yeah, I think this is a phenomenal study. If we can go back to that, Megan, the idea that they looked at over 1,000 people, and this year it was published, and they found those with the lowest levels of butyric acid, butyrate is another name for butyric acid, had greater depression. And the reverse is also true. Those with the greatest levels of butyric acid had the least depression. So clearly there's a relationship to the production of neurotransmitters that are associated with depression or actually fighting depression, the ones that increase mood and enhance mood. So it's a fascinating study. So when you're dealing with link, this is hard science. This is absolutely cutting edge science relative to mood and how the brain gut connection works.
So when we mentioned increasing metabolism, by increasing mitochondrial production, as we talked about the mitochondria being the energy sources, the engines of our cells, the more efficient they are, the more fat burning occurs, the enhancement of insulin sensitivity occurs, which means we're using sugar and energy more efficiently. And also there are implications for weight control, so that with this, you're again attaining a more homeostatic mechanism in your body so that it actually can reduce the desire to overeat and make your body basically more efficient and a much more efficient engine. And this is huge, absolutely huge. 60 to 70% of our immunity, our immune response is formed in the gut. So, and many people really don't appreciate that. So that it regulates the genes that have a positive impact on immunity, and it regulates the inflammatory markers. Nuclear factor kappa B is a major transduction factor that increases inflammation. So if we can reduce this and control it, it reduces the inflammatory process in our bodies, and regulates the T cells that are essential, the killer T cells that are constantly circulating as sentinels in our body to kill infections, and also mitotic cancer cells that are forming all the time in our body. So whatever we can do to enhance immunity regulates all of those factors, and Link has that potential to do that. And as we mentioned, inflammation is the common cause of all of the things you see on this slide. Cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes, all are associated with inflammatory processes and lead to deterioration of our inner lining of our blood vessels, which leads to a heart attack and our stroke in our brain, and also malignancies and neurodegenerative aspects relative to Alzheimer's and dementia. So not only butyric acid, those listening to this, your life should really be governed by regulating inflammation or anti-inflammation. And that goes to your diet. Everything you put in your mouth has either a good or a bad effect on your inflammatory process in your immune system. Whether or not you exercise has a profound effect on clearing your body of agents that create inflammation. And the same with stress. Stress is a terrible problem. It destroys brain cells and leads to dementia and many other bad problems. So butyric acid is one of those agents that I take should be used as part of the anti-inflammatory lifestyle that we all should live. Jeff?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. You know, you dig into the literature and you really find this is another new study as well, talking about the link between skin health and butyric acid, and the fact that it's now being studied for diseases of acne, for example, and psoriasis and other topical skin conditions, because it has the ability to enhance the immune system in a way that it lowers the incidence of the inflammatory response in the skin. So the idea of the skin and the microbiome, I believe, based on some of the literature, is just as important as the brain health and the brain-gut connection. So it's fascinating. It has the ability to counter some UV damage. And again, collagen synthesis, the idea of building the protein that's in all of our skin to give it improved elasticity, is also an important factor that butyric acid brings to the table.
You know, we've talked a lot about Link, and we're going to get into our other products and how they work together. And a lot of that talk recently was about inflammation, and we'll certainly talk more about that. You mentioned earlier that you were a little surprised, Jeff, about the link, no pun intended, between butyric acid and skin health. But Larry, in holistic medicine, especially in Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine, in fact, even with many of the distributors we have in Mexico, they would tell me things like, my mother always said that the acne on my chin was caused by what I was, you know, by damage in my stomach. So it's not that unusual in certain more traditional medical philosophies to have this link between the outside and the inside, is it?
No, in fact, in many of the Asian markets, they work heavily at keeping their complexion at the best they can to keep their skin looking as young as they can. It's common for us when we're around somebody that we know, that we're close to. You can take a look at their facial skin coloring, and how often have we looked at someone that we love, maybe it's our spouse or our children, and use the phrase, "You don't look like you're feeling well." Well, your skin is a key indicator of how your body is functioning and what's going on with your health inside your body. And so combining Link with some of our other products, we're going to see that we can put our skin at the very healthiest it can be. And by doing that, we're also including the fact that we're improving the health in our body as well.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm not a doctor. As you know, I'm a lawyer by training. And when I listened to this presentation, if I talked about this with somebody and they said, no, I don't want to take Link, I would probably be tempted to tell them as a caustic lawyer, actually, you're not smart enough to join our company. You actually need to take this product before you can join us, because obviously you don't realize how important this is. That might not be the best recruiting tool, however. So why don't we go on and talk more about Optimend at this point?
All right. So this is really another very unique product that literally is based on thousands of years of experience with the product turmeric, which is derived from the Curcuma longa plant root, and also boswellia, two compounds, two nutraceuticals, two natural products that have been used in Ayurvedic medicine, Egyptian medicine for literally thousands of years. And they've been used primarily as an anti-inflammatory. Minor aches, pains, and supporting joint mobility and flexibility, which what it does. But the main component is the anti-inflammatory action. And I take both of these products every day. And David and I were talking earlier. There's approximately 300 milligrams of turmeric in Optimend. And I've seen this used in many patients with malignancies, not to cure the malignancy, but to reduce the inflammation. MD Anderson Cancer Hospital in Texas has done an immense amount of research using the curcumin product, turmeric, in cancer therapy, cancer mitigation, and the same with boswellia. Again, when you consider that cancer has a major inflammatory component, whatever we can do to mitigate inflammation can have an effect in that regard. So that the tetrahydrocurcumin and the boswellia, also known as frankincense, has been used for thousands of years as an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. So that the combination of these two is very powerful. And in fact, we're going to show that next. So that we talked about silent inflammation. Most people, although they're up and about, they feel okay, they're working, they're doing their daily activities. If you have a typically Western diet, every day there's inflammation, silent inflammation going on in your blood vessels, particularly your coronary arteries and the arteries to your brain, that get clogged up with junk called atherosclerotic plaque that can subsequently lead to a sudden heart attack, a sudden stroke. You don't know it until it happens. That's why it's called silent inflammation. But that's what excessive sugar, pollution, toxins, lack of exercise do. It results in the kind of things you see there. Heart attack, stroke, we know patients with diabetes, too much sugar, have a much higher incidence of Alzheimer's disease and dementia. So it's all intertwined. And Jeff?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think that the point about this is the fact that we all have some inflammation, and one of the most common ones that we all suffer from is arthritis. Osteoarthritis is the common arthritis as compared to rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune condition, although that is very common as well. But it's a wear and tear condition. And I think, anyone who's a little bit older has an achy joint here or there, or if it gets rainy or cold, all of a sudden your knees are stiff and you're having a hard time moving a little bit. And that's osteoarthritis. And basically it's a breakdown of the cartilage or the cells that are in between joints. And so that leads to the body having a friction, if you will, causing pain and basically disability. And our Western world is becoming immobile. We're becoming wheelchair bound. We're using canes. We're growing older and basically becoming less and less active. So this is a very interesting study that we found looking at 54 people who took both boswellia and curcumin, in a similar formulation as found in the Optimend. And they actually did better on this product than a very powerful prescription medicine, Celebrex, which was a prescription drug at the time. And they improved substantially better compared to the group that was using a medication. So the idea is that separately, these two products work very well, the curcumin and boswellia, but together there's a synergistic effect, meaning they add to each other. So they're better together, like the chocolate and the peanut butter. They're good separately, but put them together and it's a lot better. So this is a concept that's somewhat unique to these two herbal supplements. And I think that the mixture of the two, that when the actives got together and said, we're going to use this product, it was a very smart idea to bring these two together.
I might interject also that I see probably 20 to 30 patients a week with various forms of arthritis, particularly of the neck and the low back, neck pain, back pain, as a neurosurgeon, which I treat. And I used to recommend ibuprofen, naproxen, the Tylenol. And when I looked in the literature and I saw my patients, there's 15,000 to 16,000 patients a year die from ibuprofen because of gastric hemorrhage. Tylenol is the most common cause of liver transplantation. So that none of these things are free of side effects. And I recommend now, as a first choice, this particular product for osteoarthritis. And quite frankly, many of the patients have been very satisfied with it.
You know, I remember a story you told me, Jeff and Dr. Maroon, about a patient that that you gave Optimend to for a particular condition. I don't remember what it was, but they noticed something that Larry encountered a lot as an audiologist, that their tinnitus or ringing in the ears went away. Why would that be?
I actually called the patient. I can't specifically say why that would be, but I can tell you that we gave him the product to take for 2 weeks for neck pain. I called him, he said, my neck pain is unchanged. And I said, well, that's unfortunate. But he said, by the way, the day I took it till the day I stopped taking it, my ringing in the ears, which is tinnitus, went away completely. And he was very excited to try to continue it, which we provided him more product. So the idea of it being an anti-inflammatory effect, I don't know, maybe Dr. Martin can address that, but I'm not too dissatisfied that his neck pain didn't go away in 2 weeks, as we were discussing earlier. I think a product like this, someone coming in with acute pain is going to require more long-term dosing, maybe even a higher dosing. But the idea of tinnitus was just blew us away.
Larry, what are your comments on that?
Well, certainly the tinnitus in some cases can be an inflammatory process. I see it mostly in autoimmune related hearing loss cases, things like Meniere's, and there's a type of autoimmune disorder that gives you the symptoms of Meniere's, but is easily reversed. All of the symptoms are reversed by putting the patient on steroids. Those are the cases where I think if we can reduce inflammation in those autoimmune related patients, we're going to see that inflammation drop pretty dramatically. And this is pretty exciting case study that shows that it can actually shut that tinnitus off. I can tell you in my training, and I talked to Jeff about this at our ribbon cutting, there's nothing in my training that says once you have tinnitus that you can ever turn that off. But that's a site of lesion production. What we're finding and what we're seeing in these cases is that maybe not all of them are site of lesion, that there are cases of tinnitus that are generated because of inflammation.
Well, it goes back, even though ringing in the ears is not silent, it goes back to the point that there's any number of conditions that have a inflammatory component. And if we can reduce that inflammation, then we're going to find ourselves better off in a variety of conditions. And I just want to take a note here and tell the assembled group from Actives that we're going a little bit longer than we told you, but I don't think anybody's bored. So stay with us. We still have a little bit more information to get through. And this has just been awesome so far. We could probably spend all night, but we won't. Don't worry, hang in there. And Jeff will let you, and Dr. Maroon will let you continue on.
Yeah, sure. This slide basically shows that the Optimend works through various inflammatory processes to block the NF-kappa beta, kappa B, and 5 locks. Very similar to what ibuprofen, naproxen, and other anti-inflammatories work, but without the side effects. Slide. And it goes without saying, if you reduce the inflammation, you're also reducing the aches and pains that come with overuse disorders and degenerative arthritis.
I may step in here on this one. I know that when we first spoke about butyric acid, one of the main questions you asked us is, how in the world did you do this and cover up the bad smell and the bad taste? And that's where this proprietary DexKey technology comes in, where the manufacturer actually takes a molecule of butyric acid, or in case of Optimend, a molecule of curcumin, and actually puts it in a trap that you see there, another molecule of something called cyclodextrin, which effectively, not only in the case of butyric acid, covers up the smell and the taste, but also helps deliver it safely through the stomach acid and everything that's associated with the gut to get it to where it can be dispersed throughout the body. And that's something that is also a key differentiation between our product and, frankly, any other butyric acid or curcumin product out there.
I concur completely. That's one of the biggest things that drew us to these products. No one else is doing this.
The secret sauce, is that what you're saying, David?
Secret sauce. And the good news is it's patent pending, so they're not going to be able to copy the secret sauce. That's why I don't feel bad talking about it. So let's progress.
So again, we explained how Link works in the gut to assist with the manufacturing and deliverance of butyric acid and all of its positive effects. And Optimend, through other mechanisms, counteracts the harmful effects of inflammation throughout the body. So as the slide says, it is indeed a power-packed combination. And I've been taking these now for several months, and I'm very pleased with the results personally and have recommended to many, many patients.
And I could just add, Dr. Maroon, that the idea of having a good digestive health, no matter what other supplement or you're taking, is going to be very beneficial. It may maximize the absorption and maximize the bioavailability. So I think Link is sort of the underlying gut benefit that everything else benefits from, so to speak.
I'd certainly concur with that as well. It is so important that we get the gut operating at the level that we need it to operate. If we want the products that we're taking, and it may be pharmaceutical products, if we want the foods that we're eating to be absorbed properly, we need to start with getting that gut in order so that all the systems that we're trying to improve will improve along with the health of the gut.
Well, there's a saying that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. I guess maybe we can say that the way to a man and woman's health might be through their stomach as well. And so for us to benefit from every good thing that we put into our body, whether that be Optimend or nutrition in other forms, that Link is going to be helpful in helping us accomplish that.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Well, now we're going to talk about something that's a little bit further afield from most of your regular things that you talk about. But we do have a great skincare line in the form of Emora. Dr. Maroon, I don't know that you consider yourself to be a skincare expert, but as you've looked into the Emora line, what have been your feelings about that?
Well, I went to the meeting we had in Salt Lake City, and I was introduced to this, and I've been using it ever since. And when I went home from the meeting, I looked in the mirror and I wondered who that was in the mirror. And then after using this, I looked again and I said, hey, maybe I recognize that guy. So anyway, I use this. The mud, I've had a little difficulty with it in the sense that I kind of spill it over things, and I think we need to help refine the delivery system there.
I think you have a lot of people who agree with you.
As an exfoliation product, I think it works. The toner I love the essence of it, the smell of it, in terms of preparing the skin for the serum, which has a very nice texture, odor, and feeling when you're finished with it. So again, and the ingredients in both products are strong. I think they're excellent products.
Dr. Martin, you know at least one of these people. It's Angie Hawthorne, who's the first before and after. I'm glad that she's not shy about sharing that. I think she's not shy because she was so ecstatic about the results that she's seen. But what has been your response in regards to the Emora products?
Well, first of all, if I can back up a little bit and talk about some of the things we talked about the Link product. And we basically chatted about the gut-brain function, that gut-brain axis that occurs. There's a number of really recent research studies are starting to suggest that that same gut-brain axis also affects the other organs in the body as well. There's one good study recently came out that talked about a gut-liver axis that occurs, and they believe that the biome in the gut will help heal non-alcoholic liver disease. Well, I believe that if we're starting to see that pattern as we learn more about how that gut is functioning, we'll be able to say the same thing occurs with the skin. And that seems to be pretty obvious in some of the disordered skin diseases that we're seeing that are reversing once we start healing the gut with the Link product. But as far as personal uses, I've been using it myself. I love the toner after I've shaven. It reduces the oxidative stress from the irritation of the razor blade. But most importantly is my spouse. She has very sensitive skin, uses no makeup, and hasn't for years. Not without trying. She's always looking for a product that works. And since the Emora product came in our hands and she's been using it, it is the very first complete product system that she's been able to use without irritation and having her skin reject, if you will, the chemicals or the ingredients being used in the product. So it's such a natural product that the ingredients are so pure that the skin really reacts favorably to this particular product.
The next slides all talk about each of the Emora products, in this case, the mud. Jeff, as you've looked at the Emora line generally, have you had a response or an impression that you've got regarding the ingredients and the benefits of the products?
Well, I have to say, just as an observer of Dr. Maroon's complexion, I think he does look younger and has used the product. I know that. I think that the point is, the skin is the largest organ in the body. We abuse it every day with UV radiation. We abuse it with the environment we're in, with toxins. And if we aren't doing something for our skin to make it healthy, then we're not taking care of ourselves. So the idea of the skin is sort of the insight into our soul. It also, if our organs are bad, our intestines are bad, the skin will show it, as Dr. Martin said. So anything that we can do both inside and outside as far as rejuvenating our skin, allowing it to heal, I think is important. And that's my observation. This product does a superior job. As I said, I think Dr. Maroon has had a very positive response with it. So I think the science behind this is very strong.
The thing with me, Jeff, there's no way to go but up.
Well, like Dr. Maroon, I liked all of the products. They don't last as long for me because I have a lot more real estate I have to cover from the back of my head all the way over to the front. And but what I can tell you is that when my wife hears me banging the mud jar on the side of the shower, she knows I'm shaking it up so I don't spill the entire thing. So we are working on that delivery system a little bit. But I also like the way that my skin feels when it feels much softer. It feels just healthier when I use the mud. Now, as for the toner, I love the feel, and the serum. I can't tell you honestly that people are stopping me on the street and saying how good I look. I wish that would happen, but I'll leave that up for you three to get the benefits of that in your movie star status. But in conclusion, talking about taking all of these products together, let's start with you, Dr. Martin. If someone were to say to you, should I take all these products together? And if so, why? What would you say?
Well, the interesting thing with these products is that they are so synergistic with one another. If you really look at the benefits that Link product offers, and you look at the benefits that the anti-inflammatory, the Optimend product offers, you'll see some overlap. But the unique thing is that we're presenting these products differently. They're designed, if you will, as an anti-inflammatory, antioxidant product with the Optimend is going to be changing how the body functions with inflammation differently than how presenting the butyric acid product at the gut level is addressing inflammation. And so the fact that there's this overlap is a positive aspect of and a support, if you will, for the reason that you need to be taking these products together to take advantage of that synergistic ability of how these two products are functioning in the body. And likewise with the Emora, is that we're doing the same thing. There's some overlap with it and how it heals the skin. And so when you're using all three products, you're going to see all three are working together to help heal the body.
Jeff, I'll ask you the same question.
Yep. I alluded to building blocks. There's, you're starting with a base or foundation relative to the Link product. You're adding the Optimend to focus on certain areas of inflammation that are even more troublesome as far as pain and joint pain. And then you add the skin product, which takes the benefits of all this systemic or the stuff that you're taking inside, showing on the outside. And the topicals will add to that. So as Dr. Martin said, it's sort of like building blocks, building on one another to get the optimum benefit. And no one else does this. No, you're not going to, if you walk into a GNC and you see the thousands of products, you're not going to figure out how to do anything like this on your own. So it's very unique. And there's a lot of thought going into each product as far as the synergistic effects.
Dr. Maroon, I know that you're a big believer in taking steps to control the things that you can control, that would be amazed at what aspects of our life we really can improve. How do you think that these products fit in with that philosophy?
Well, David, first of all, I think I congratulate you on your creativity in building these products, so to speak. But also, I look behind the products to the mechanism of action in terms of the anatomy, the physiology, the biochemistry. And they are, as the slide says, they're incredibly synergistic, unique, and readily available. So I use all three of them myself. I'm convinced that based on what I said on the understanding the substrate of how they work, it just fits.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being with us tonight. I appreciate those kind words in terms of what I've been able to do, but it hasn't been just me. In fact, it hasn't even been mostly me. The entire Actives family is really synergistic. I like that term. We work together. There's been lots of great ideas and lots of things presented. And in fact, one of the things that we've done is to make it a little bit easier for people to get these products is that we've run a promotion this month that we call the Summer Value Bundle. And so just to remind everyone that through the end of this month, you can buy the Emora set and get 2 bottles of Link for free, which is an incredible value. And the only reason that we're doing it is because we feel so strongly about the need to get the benefits of this product and all of our products into the hands of everyone out there. So thank you all for joining us. I appreciate the involvement of Jeff, Dr. Maroon, and Dr. Martin, and all that you do and bring to the Actives family. I appreciate all of you that spent time tonight listening, and I hope that you'll share this. It will be available to you to share with your friends and family and everyone that you meet that you think might have the need for our products. And I guess as the good doctor said tonight, that's everybody. So let's get out there and share. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you again soon.